We appreciate that very much. First speaker, if you could come to the podium, is Richard Marsh, and just state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to make your presentation once you finish with your name and address.
Richard Marsh, 7359 Poplar Pike, and have a distinction of having lived here for 52 years, on and off. So grew up in Germantown, so I remember it and have watched it go through a lot of growth. I may be one of very few, if any, voices in the room that wants to speak briefly to support a careful consideration of quality multifamily as a part of the overall development within the city. I brought with me today 2 reports, one from a combination of the Sierra Club, the Urban Land Institute, and the American Institute of Architects regarding, in particular, high-density development, and another from Harvard University, both published within the last few years with surveys of factual data and research regarding concerns about, and again, specifically higher density multifamily development as a part of overall mixed-use development in suburban communities. Just in a very brief synopsis of the ULI report in particular, both of these, though, are consistent in their numbers of others. Many of you may have seen this. I would commend these to others in the audience, particularly those with concerns about the topics that are covered, but in particular, higher density developments in regard to the effect on property values of single family in the community surrounding those developments, the impact on public schools and the need for public school expansions to accommodate additional students, the effect on traffic congestion and parking, as well as higher crime rates and some of the others. You spoke to that. There is some very good factual data and a number of research studies that have been done on that in communities around the U.S. where there's been a lot of that type of development done. What the summation of these studies indicates is that to a great degree, if not in all cases, the greatest fears that most of us have about those types of issues are really unfounded, at least based upon the factual results in communities where they have done, again, high quality, higher density and mixed use type developments, such, for example, as the one across the street where there's a mixture of retail, office, multifamily, residential, and so forth. And in fact, demographic data supports that as well, in particular regarding the types of tenants that tend to enjoy those higher density types of projects tend to be young single professionals and retired couples and things of that nature who generally don't have a lot of children. That's just one factor that I would mention. I would also say that over the last 30 years, I'm a commercial banker. I've had an opportunity to be involved in a number of financing. I have no involvement in any of the financing of any of these projects or any of the investment in the projects either. But I've had the opportunity to look at a number of similar types of projects over the last 10 years in particular across
15 seconds, sir.
That includes Charlotte, Nashville, Memphis, Birmingham, and other communities, and have seen nothing but generally very positive and good results in all of these areas. So I just commend that to you all. And these are all available online.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Next speaker will be Margaret Jackson. Ms. Jackson, if you could come forward, come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes once you conclude.
Hi, Margaret Jackson, 1409 Riverwood Cove. I'm not anti-apartment and I'm not anti-development. My concern is about the schools, and we are already so overcrowded in the schools that even adding, 20 kids is really going to hurt us. Our superintendent has given you guys at planning sessions the information that we get 0.31 kids for every household. And according to the Germantown Department of Economic Development, 1,400 new households of any kind are going to give us 206 new K-5 students and 102 middle school students. Now, we are building a new school, but that is to accommodate our overcrowding that already exists. We are currently close to 350 students over maximum capacity at K through 5, and 565 over optimal capacity. We are currently 25 over max capacity at the middle school and 100 over optimal capacity. And while we are building a school that will accommodate 739 to 815 students, we are in the K through 5, we have no plans for middle school, none. And the school district is building the biggest school they can, given the money that this funding body has given them. So if we're adding 1,400 households, which if we add up the developments that are currently planned, you know, you're already going over what the Forest Hill small area plan said that you would add through 2025. Even just in that area, you're adding 620 rental units when the plan calls for 252. So I'm just a little baffled. I'm glad you're doing a moratorium, and I'm glad to hear that there's going to be an amendment that will hopefully make it a real moratorium to let us catch up, because my feeling is not that I don't want development. I don't want it to come so fast that we cannot accommodate what that brings. You know, our schools are crowded, and that's not fair to the kids, and it's not fair to the teachers. And the parents aren't happy because
15 seconds.
Their kids are not getting the education that they should when the slogan is excellence every day, excellence always.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Oh, no. We all agree, just clap internally. Next speaker will be Marlene Struby. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Marlene Struby, 7642 Foster Ridge. I've been in Germantown since 1992, so I too have seen many, many changes, many great changes. I'm not opposed to change. I'm not opposed to development. I will say that 94% of the people that answered a survey I happened to see on Nextdoor were opposed to more apartments, though. They don't want them. It's too many. As Meg stated, it was supposed to be a little over 200. There's been a little over 600 approved and in the pipeline. This moratorium is too late and too little. The schools are already at capacity, and the multi-family developments that are already in the various stages of approval that will increase the student population beyond what the schools can handle. Many are concerned also about the strain on public services. There are concerns about property values as well as increasing property taxes because, in part, the schools, once again. At some point, the taxes will be so high that unless you have children in the schools, it may not be worth it to you to live here. If you want a diversified tax base, you're going to lose it. I have had residents in my neighborhood tell me this. They cannot afford it. As those who feel that way move out, that will precipitate even more families replacing those people in their homes, and that will bring more children who will need more seats in those schools. So you're going to have to build yet another school or two. If you think back to 2005, when the Shelby County Commission put a moratorium on new development, the schools in southeast Shelby County were bursting at the seams, and there was not enough capacity for all the projected students who would live in the properties which were already approved. Sounds very familiar to the situation that we are currently in our city. The majority of this body has approved developments at such a rapid pace that we could be faced with needing 1 or 2 more schools before the one that is currently slated to start construction is finished. In the 2007 resolution, smart growth was presented as lofts above businesses, along with condos and townhomes. But what we seem to be getting is apartments instead.
15 seconds.
Anyway, the checks and balances that have been removed to expedite the approval process on smart growth development have often occurred before citizens can even realize it's happened. I ask that you slow this train down.
Thank you, Ms. Strebe. Next speaker. Next speaker, Mr. Steve Shields. Mr. Shields, if you could come forward and state your name and address for the record.
First off, Mayor, thank you very much. Alderman, thank you very much. Administrator Lawton and Attorney Harris, thank you for your service. I've been a resident of Germantown for 20 years. My current address, some of you may recognize, is 1716 Cordova Road, which is exactly at the corner of Cordova and Neshoba. And I have the opportunity to look out the window at the triangle across the way. I also have the opportunity to watch the school kids stand on my corner as they're picked up by their parents in the buses. And I have the opportunity to watch the school kids ride their bikes. And so I encourage, I have limited knowledge right now about this proposal. I'm starting to pick up bits and pieces of it from you, Ms. Gibson, for example, to start all over and go to single-family dwellings as I understood it. And even then, whatever the dwellings may be, we have to take a careful look at the infrastructure, the budget, the schools, and safety. And so I speak to that even if we're talking about single-family dwellings, whatever dwellings we are. Certainly I'm in favor of a moratorium. I heard the word standalone, though, and all of a sudden my ears went up, and I thought, well, wait a minute, what does that mean? Well, that means if in fact it's stacked on top, I guess, that those dwellings would be okay, but I'm opposed to that. I think there needs to be very careful thought about those factors that I mentioned to you, and I will say this to you. I'm from Indiana, and there's a couple places up in Indiana where my family live, and they've been putting in apartments. And let me tell you about data. I can find you data to support anything. I assure you. And the data I'm hearing from my family is that they move too fast on apartments, on dwellings, and they had data, but what they forgot was its context. It's the specific piece of property. It's what's around that property. It's how it's going to impact this community. And so I suggest to you, yes, take a look at the data, but you need to be looking at the data as it relates to the property here in Germantown, not as it relates to some other areas of the country. And so I would urge you then this evening to step back, take another look, and Alderman Gibson, I'm in complete favor of that. But even then, I ask you to, whatever the dwellings may be, that we take a very careful look at these issues, and I would hope if a moratorium is passed, that moratorium would cover this. One, not just standalone, and secondly, it wouldn't be from this date forward. I don't know what is going on, but there's a survey, and there's a lot of strings on that property, and if there's already been an application, then I would certainly hope that a moratorium would cover any application now, and we not find out later, oh, that application was in before the moratorium. And so, thank you very much. I appreciate
Mr.
your
Shields. Jim Jacobs, if you could come forward, please.
Thank you. I am Jim Jacobs, live at 7684 Apple Valley Road. I've been a resident for almost 32 years now, and am proud to be a resident of Germantown. I am a transplant. I grew up in the north, moved to Memphis about 40 years ago. Never thought I would retire here, but I have lived at Apple Valley for almost 32 years now, and I am proud to call Germantown home. Very proud of it. I've seen a lot of changes over the years, but It is a wonderful community, and I hope it continues to do so. First off, let me congratulate the city on the recipient of the Tennessee Center for Performance Excellence Award. I think this is just absolutely outstanding. It represents the fine work that the citizens and the staff and the elected officials do here, and I am most proud, and it's a very deserved recognition. Now, to the point that I wanted to speak about tonight. It is specifically the Owens Triangle. Many of these citizens are here tonight because they feel as they've been betrayed over the years. And that started when smart growth was initiated on that triangle. That property was zoned residential. We always viewed it as being residential. We were very, very disappointed when that became overlaid with the T4 zoning. We are not opposed to development. We are not opposed to progress in this city. We think it's a wonderful thing, but there are areas that it fits in and areas that it doesn't. And my original intention was to appeal to this body to consider that situation, consider these fine citizens and how they feel about their community and things that back up to their houses. I think you have done that, if I understand correctly. I think I am going to continue to be very proud of this body. Please do not disappoint me. Do not disappoint the rest of the people here in this audience tonight, because we will remember. Thank you.
The next speaker will be, and I'm going to mispronounce your name, Jamie Picunco. We've met several times, but come forward, please. When you state your name for the record, I'll be corrected, I know.
No worries. It's Picunco. I get that
sorry.
a lot. 9318 South Romano Way, Germantown. We're in the Vining subdivision across from Forest Hill Heights. So I'll just start with 2,575 votes or signatures. That's how many people have signed the petition to change the moratorium, to accept it, and to alter it. And that was as of 4 p.m. before I printed this out, and I know it's gone up since then. And this was in 60 hours. I didn't have enough paper to print you all a copy, so there's just one. It's 119 pages. I can leave that with you all if you want it. I don't know what I'm supposed to hand out and not. I think I gave you all a copy, or you should all have a copy of the petition. Our biggest concerns, obviously, I appreciate you guys putting forth the amendment. Our former speaker, and I didn't remember his name, talked about smart growth, and that is a real concern for us. With smart growth and the way that zoning changes have been implemented in a bunch of different areas, that's allowed all of this dense development. So we're against apartments, but we're also want you to be cautious about the dense development that's going on. Beyond apartments, and I appreciate the moratorium, and I hope that it continues beyond 18 months. You heard from Meg, I think, about the numbers on the school. Just in Forest Hill Heights alone, the small plan was supposed to be for 278 apartments, 58 apartments. One apartment complex alone, the watermark is 310. And then you added the Viridian, which is another 300. Now, I've heard a couple of people in emails over the weekend stress that those are not final. The only one that's final is the watermark and, which is the other one? Thornwood. We would love for you to consider that the Viridian possibly change those numbers. I don't know if they can. 600 apartments all in one area that's going to ferret all to the new school, and where the Viridian was supposed to go, that's all trails, or that's what it was proposed to the homeowners in the area. And that's kind of the issue with what's going on, the smart growth and all of this planning and the planning commission that can push these things through well before I think the area is ready. Also in that area is going to be the Goodwin Farms. That's 232 homes. And the John Duke development, which is going to be north of the school, that's 100 homes. So that's not even including apartments. That's over 332 homes right there, and there's a lot more undeveloped area.
15 seconds.
So I hope you take the signatures and listen to the people. You've also got 19 pages of comments that people also included there, and you all have copies of that. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker. Next speaker, Don Lossing. Don, if you can come forward, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Don Lossing. I live at 1475 Cordova Road, Germantown, Tennessee. I've been there 36 years. I'm the president in the Shelby North Neighborhood Association. And I would like to express my thanks to this council for the welcome that you've given the large group that's shown up here this evening. More so, I'd like to express my thanks to the crowd that's shown up, expressing by their very presence their thoughts at the matters at hand. I'm going to temper my comments. Marianne, you remember I told you I make a fool of myself every time I get up here. Anyway, I'm going to temper my comments just a little bit because of what you've had to say already regarding the proposed resolution. Nevertheless, my thinking is...
Point of order. I'm sorry. He's referencing something that has not occurred. I did want to bring this up, but Alderman Gibbs was out of order when she said that she was going to make her amendment. It hasn't occurred. We don't need citizens tempering their comments based on something that Alderman Gibson may or may not do. And I'm not. This isn't directed toward you.
Good.
But I don't want her comments to cause any one of these citizens not to say exactly what's in their heart and on their mind tonight. You say exactly what it is.
I stand by what I said. I'm going to temper my comments. It seems to me that the city of Germantown is a right plumb, and you've got marketing people probably sitting somewhere else in the country that are pointing the fingers toward us, in particular to the developers they know, and say, you need to go see what you can stir up in Germantown. And some of it's good, some of it isn't. Some of it is good and some of it isn't.
But just speak into the microphone closely. Yeah.
Anyway, and consequently, we get into situations like we have here. Maybe there's misunderstanding, maybe there isn't misunderstanding, but we don't need people coming in here and telling us what you need, Germantown, or more apartments. I would throw it out to the crowd. Has anyone here had people tell you that we need more apartments in Germantown? No. Have you heard people say that the traffic is getting worse rather than better?
Yes. Address the board, please.
I'm breaking all kinds of rules here tonight.
That's all right. You're preaching.
Nevertheless, we're here tonight because you are elected officials, okay? You've got all these boards and committees and such as that around town. We can't keep up with all those guys and what they're doing and how they meet and what they have plans for. We're looking to you guys. And you're going to live and die in your position as to what goes on in this city and what we like and what we don't like. And we're citizens. We're not developers. We're not going to make a lot of money off any development that comes in here. We want to protect our own homeowner interests, and that's it. And I expect, and I know the neighborhood association that I represent, they expect you folks to do your job to protect us.
Your time has expired.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. Next citizen is Barry Britton. Mr. Britton, if you could come forward. Oh, we're close.
Thank you.
Good.
Very
State your
close.
name and
Very-
address for the record, please.
Barry Britton. I live at 1752 Crooked Creek Lane, the Hopper Glen condominiums down the street. Mayor Palazzolo, thank you. Mr. Lawton, board members. I didn't bring any notes. I didn't bring any numbers. All I brought with me was the pride of Germantown. I've lived here since 1990. And Germantown was a community. And we're slowly paving and blacktopping that community. We're getting closer and closer to just being just an extension of East Memphis, and that's not what we want. I don't care whether we need apartments or not. I don't know. When are we going to stop? We just keep cutting down trees and putting down blacktop. Cutting down trees, putting up blacktop. When is it going to stop? Are we going to pave the entire city? One thing's impressive. First time I've ever been here. First time. I've been very impressed by watching all the aldermen. They're taking notes. They're listening. I believe they really do have a pride. I was so impressed with what Mayor Palazzolo said. When he started reading off all the things that makes Germantown what Germantown is, man, you just swell with pride. That's all I brought was pride. I didn't bring any notes. I'm just talking from the heart. Germantown is a community. If we wanted to keep building office buildings and we have everything we need. Is there any business that we don't have in this city outside of maybe pawn shops and maybe adult bookstores and
We have ordinances for that, sir. Go ahead,
thank you.
continue.
That's what makes Germantown Germantown. You know, where I'm standing right now, I can get in my car and in 10 minutes I can be at everything I need. There's nothing that can be built in the next 10 years in this city that we don't already have. Sorry about that, Channel 3. It won't stay up, ma'am. You need to come fix this thing. I'm not going to take up my 3 minutes because we've had some awfully good speakers, and I just want to say, you know, I just want Germantown to stay Germantown.
Thank you, Mr. Britton. Next speaker is Patsy McLaughlin. You could state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
I'm Patsy McLaughlin. I live at 1752 Crooked Creek Lane with that man who just spoke. and I love Germantown. I've lived here since the late 70s and have seen a lot of changes, but nothing like what's happening all of a sudden. It's like coming out of, I don't know, it's just unbelievable what's happening down the corner from our street. And that 5-story building, I mean, we didn't used to be able to have signs more than, I don't know, what was the height? And now we've got a 5-story building in our town. Thank God it's on the other far end. But those poor people that live next door, that spent a lot of money on their homes, and now they look at a parking garage. I am sorry for them. I found out from my alderman, John Barziza, thank you, Mr. Barziza, that I'm really supposed to just speak to the board. So I had planned to ask a question like, how many people want apartments, more apartments in Germantown? That was going to be a question I was going to ask of the audience, but I guess I'm not supposed to ask that question.
I think we already know the answer to that.
Yeah, I think I do. So I just want to say that I love Germantown because of its beauty, and I am a tree hugger. And I have a hard time when I see clear cutting, like right down the street from me at the corner of Germantown Parkway and Neshoba. I mean, bazoom, all the trees went down and the buildings went up. And I mean, who voted for that? And who is zoning all this?
You have 15 seconds, ma'am.
And I guess that's about it. I don't want any more apartments. I don't want any more buildings, and I do want to save trees.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Next speaker is John Payton. Mr. Payton, if you could come forward and state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is John Payton. I live at 1705 Old Mill Road. I prefer speaking openly from memory, but in this instance, I will read my own words in order to keep on track and to the point. My wife and I moved to Germantown with my son because, even as other neighborhoods rose in popularity and then fell from grace, I didn't touch that. Germantown always remained the same. It was known to have strict codes and rules that kept large, unsightly signs and buildings from destroying the wonderful, quiet bedroom community feel that kept Germantown's home prices higher than the surrounding areas. Now we have rezoned areas next to homes and relaxed building codes for the sake of growth. I feel that developers have taken advantage of this and are on track to vastly overbuild what we can support. For instance, Germantown had not built a single apartment in decades, and suddenly we have more than doubly the number in the city limits at a time when our schools are already overcrowded. This proposed moratorium has loopholes that need to be closed. It should apply to mixed use as well as standalone apartments, since they both have the same effect on our schools and infrastructure. I am not against apartments. I think we can support a development like Thornwood, and we probably did need a few apartments. But not John Payton said that. But I feel strongly that we needed one development with apartments, not the 4 we currently have planned. On the Nextdoor website, you've already heard about these polls that we did. I saw a poll that in the eastern section of the city, east of Germantown Parkway, they put a poll out there, and basically out of 495 people voting, 94% said I am against more apartments. 3% said unsure, and 3% said I am for more apartments. This poll did not get sent to the Neshoba North area, so I decided to do a poll for my neighborhood myself, using only verified residents of Germantown in the Neshoba North area. My poll revealed the following. Out of 54 people who voted, 27 said I'm against all the mixed-use developments going on right now. 26 said there are way too many apartments being built and planned in Germantown. 1 said the planned apartments are a great addition to the city. That was one person. These polls show a clear and overwhelming majority of Germantown residents are against these developments. The rezoning and mixed-use development push may have been a mistake. It's too late to fix what I feel is irreparable harm to the look and feel of Germantown, let alone the influx of people our services will need to support.
15 seconds.
Yes, sir. But it's not too late to put a stop to the overdevelopment and pillaging of Germantown's allure and the reputation as a quiet bedroom community that attracted so many homeowners to this wonderful town. Development can be good when kept in check, but rezoning to allow this amount of development this fast is scary. I'd at least like for us to slow down and make sure we're doing the right thing. I want to thank you very much for your time and attention.
Last speaker this evening will be David Dixon. Mr. Dixon, if you could come forward, state your name and address for the record. Take your time. You're closing us out.
My name is David Dixon, 1600 Cordova Road here in Germantown. I've lived here for over 22 years, and I'm proud to be a resident of Germantown. And quite honestly, a lot of good words have been said. I agree with them fully. A lot of nice political things about a better growth pattern will be there. I'm just going to say I'm against apartments.
We enjoy hearing from you. We also enjoy that when you speak to the board and to your fellow residents, you do so with great class and distinction.